Hey YouTube, Hive Radical here. I just had one of those interesting moments where I thought I was recording, so I was blathering on for several minutes and realized I wasn't, so I wasted like 20 minutes of saying, and I thought I was doing really well too, but obviously we didn't get it. But I'm going to actually start something, a novel I haven't done before. I'm going to try to give a response to many different points on several different topics. And I'm going to give it by giving a kind of base response part first that I believe applies to all of them of this series of responses I want to get, and then I'm going to make branching off videos or video series addressing each individual point. So I'm just going to start off here with an introduction. The points, at least some of the points initially, there may be some other branching videos that I may add on in the series. But I'm going to be addressing same-gender attraction within the church and how it relates to the gospel and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and how it's approached, and the issues regarding that, and also something that I've seen recently as being quite tied is the issue that's been brought out by Shizulu and others with regards to blacks and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormon Church, blacks, and how there's we're coming up on the 30th anniversary of the blacks being allowed to both receive the priesthood and to participate in temple ordinances, which they were not allowed to for the most part prior to that. And another branch I hope to address just the overall idea of culture, and get into some more detail regarding the idea of cults and just human nature in general, and how there's kind of a poorly addressed way of identifying this kind of stuff, and kind of some poorly used propaganda. But to start with, I need, again, like I said, a foundation. This is going to be kind of a trunk series, if you will, of videos from which those other videos will branch off of. So I'm going to start off first of all with the idea of the word culture. And I've addressed this previously, but just for those of you who may not be aware or may not have thought about it before, the idea, or the word culture, the etymology or the history of the word culture, is tied to words such as, well, cult on one hand, but also to cultivate. If any of you have heard the term cultivation, it's tied to growing, farming. The word actually, the root words mean to till, basically to break up the soil. So when you're going out tilling, cultivating the soil, a cultivator, somebody who cultivates something is often referred to as growing. A culture is tied to the ideas, and what I've seen is this idea of culture being tied to the intellectual side of humanity. It's kind of described as the intellectual side, and I'm going to bring this in with kind of the concepts and terminology used by the likes of Richard Dawkins when he speaks of memes or memetics, and that, for those of you unfamiliar with those terms, a meme is kind of a memory or idea version of a gene. It's just basically taking an idea and following it through its evolutions and through its generations as it's passed from one point to another. And then you've got genetics for genes, so you've got memetics for memes. And that's really tied into this idea of culture and ideas being passed on, and the idea of humanity being passed on. And there's some key things in this, the idea of passing on ideas, because you see we've got in DNA and genetics, genetics is passed on through the mechanisms of DNA. If you look at how our culture is passed on, how we cultivate the memetics, the transmission of ideas, of identity, of perception that humans share of humanity, is through some basic constructs, some basic setups. Now, you think back to when you were forming your ideas of what the world is, how you're going to digest the world, how you're going to select for ideas and accept them and take them into your sort of mimetic makeup, if you will, and rejecting perchance others, and how these play out in both your progress and how they affect your capacity to pass on ideas to others, for others to be receptive to your ideas, for you to be receptive to other people's ideas or different kinds of ideas. So it's this kind of complex melee of things going on. And I just really like the idea that Dawkins has of comparing it to genetics, because it's quite a non-linear process. There's so many variables and things at play, and there's an environment, and there's a natural selection, a blind watchmaker, if you will. And that's kind of one thing I want to hopefully can get across in these videos, is to demonstrate not only a defense in the context of the reference to my faith, but on many of these things I hope to make a viable defense in the context and the perspective of others that may not be of the theistic persuasion, if you will. So again, back to the idea of the transmission of ideas. If we think back to when that was forming in us when we were children, it's very much tied to our environment, to our to those things that were initially given to us, and the setting in which all that occurred. And the creation of that setting is very much centered around the idea of a family. So if we take the idea of a family, I mean, we can go in all different angles with this, and that's kind of where I'm going to branch out now. And so if you'll take these things from this kind of base video, and then depending on which issue you want to see, or if you wish to see all the videos, or I might even add other branching off videos to this base idea later, then feel free to go and see those. So thanks again, and hope you enjoy the various branch off videos to this.